The night my family made me homeless, it was raining. Not a soft rain. A cold, October, Atlanta rain that soaks through your hoodie and your pride at the same time. I remember standing on the porch of the house I grew up in, 2247, Delmar Drive, staring at a key that no longer worked. I was 19 years old. I had $47 in my checking account, a trash bag full of clothes, and a father who wouldn't even come to the door. My name is Ethan Dion Griffin, and this is the story of everything that happened after that night. Let me take you back 48 hours so you understand what I walked into. My father, Jacob Griffin, called a family meeting. Those two words always meant someone was about to get hurt. He sat at the head of the kitchen table with my Aunt Coraline beside him, her two sons Hudson and Kendrick flanking her like bodyguards. My mother, Lucille, sat at the far end, eyes down, tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Ethan," my father said, "we've been talking, and we think it's time you started figuring out your own way." I was a freshman in community college, working 22 hours a week at a FedEx warehouse, paying $200 a month toward household bills, a deal we had since I turned 18. "I'm already contributing, Dad. We have an agreement." Aunt Coraline leaned forward. That woman had a smile like a trapdoor. "Baby, it's not about contribution. It's about space. Hudson and Kendrick need somewhere stable to land." And there it was. My room. My stability. My future, handed over to two grown men who'd never paid a bill in their lives. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't look back. That was the first knife. Here's what they don't show you in movies about being homeless. It's not dramatic. It's just cold and embarrassing. It smells like mildew and regret. I slept in my 2003 Camry for 11 days. Parked behind a Kroger off I-20, because the lighting was good and security didn't check after 2 a.m. I used the store bathroom to wash up before my warehouse shift. I ate gas station sandwiches and told myself the humiliation was temporary. My boy Mason, we'd been friends since 5th grade, he found out after day 4. Showed up at my car with 2 blankets, a charging cable, and a Tupperware container of his mom's smothered chicken. "Man, why didn't you call me?" I couldn't answer that. Pride is a prison nobody warns you about. Mason let me crash on his couch, but his apartment was a 1-bedroom he shared with his girlfriend, Yanelle. The tension was immediate. I could hear them arguing at night in low, hissing tones. "It's just temporary, Yanelle." 3 weeks is not temporary, Mason. I started looking for a room the next morning. Meanwhile, back at 2247, Delmar Drive, Hudson and Kendrick had moved in fully. I found out through Facebook, of all things, because Aunt Coraline posted a photo of them smiling in my old bedroom with a caption that read, "New beginnings. So grateful for family." New beginnings. I saved that post. I don't know why. Maybe because somewhere in my chest, 19-year-old Ethan needed proof that what happened to him was real. That he wasn't dramatic. That he wasn't overreacting. That his family had genuinely chosen 2 ungrateful cousins over their own son. For rent-free. For nothing. I found a room in a boarding house on Glenwood Avenue for $380 a month. It was the size of a walk-in closet. The landlord, Mr. Obinna, a stout Nigerian man in his 60s who wore the same plaid shirt 3 days in a row, told me the rules the day I moved in. No cooking after 10 p.m. No guests overnight. Rent on the first. No exceptions. And don't bother me with drama. I respected him immediately. That tiny room became my laboratory. I was still at the warehouse, night shifts, 5 days a week, but during the day, I started watching YouTube tutorials on web development. Not because I had a plan. Honestly, because the library had free Wi-Fi and I needed somewhere to sit that wasn't my car. Something clicked. Within 2 months, I was building basic websites. Within 6, I'd taken 3 free certifications online. I charged a local barbershop $150 for a simple website. They referred me to a hair salon. The salon referred me to a restaurant. By 21, I was pulling in $2,000 a month freelancing while still at the warehouse. At 22, I quit the warehouse. My father called me that same month. First time in almost 2 years. Ethan. I heard you're doing pretty well. I sat on the edge of my bed in that small room and felt absolutely nothing. I'm working on it, I said. You know the door's always open, son. I almost laughed. The lock he'd changed was still on the door. He just thought time had erased it. I appreciate that, Dad, I said. I hung up. And I kept building. Let me tell you something about building yourself in silence. Nobody celebrates the 2 a.m. coding sessions. Nobody posts about the client who ghosted you after you built their entire platform. Nobody acknowledges the months you eat ramen and calculate whether you can afford both groceries and software subscriptions. But I want you to understand the climb, because the fall, their fall, won't mean anything without it. By 23, I incorporated my first LLC, Griffin Digital Solutions. One-man operation. I was designer, developer, account manager, and janitor. My office was a desk in the corner of a shared co-working space downtown. That's where I met Priya Anand. She was 26, Indian American, sharp as a razor blade, and she was building a logistics software startup. She needed a custom client portal. I pitched her with a hand-drawn wireframe on notebook paper and a confidence I had absolutely no business having. She hired me. That project became my portfolio centerpiece. 3 months later, Priya introduced me to her investor network. One of those investors, a quiet, intense man named Michael Okafor, pulled me aside after a pitch meeting. You're solving the right problems, he said. You just need to stop thinking small. He wrote me a check for $50,000 in seed funding. I cried in my car afterward. Not sad tears. The kind that come when you realize the suffering was load-bearing. That every humiliation had been building something. Meanwhile, I found out through my cousin Tamara, the only family member who kept it real with me, that Hudson had quit his second job and Kendrick had been arrested for a minor theft charge. My father was paying their phone bills. Out of the same household account that once paid for my school supplies. I need to talk about my mother. Because you might be wondering, where was Lucille Griffin in all of this? And the answer is the most painful part of this entire story. My mother is not a villain. That's what makes it complicated. She's a woman who learned early that survival meant compliance. Growing up under a domineering husband, surrounded by a family that valued loyalty to the group over truth, she became an expert at disappearing inside herself. She called me 3 weeks after I left. Not to apologize. To explain. Ethan, you have to understand your father had pressure from Coraline for years. She's his sister. Blood obligation. Mom. I'm his son. Silence. I know, baby. That was it. That was all she had. I started visiting her secretly, Tuesday afternoons when my father was at his brother's shop playing cards. She'd make sweet tea and we'd sit on the back porch and talk about everything except the truth. It was grief dressed as small talk. One Tuesday, I noticed the stress lines around her eyes had deepened. She moved slower. There were pill bottles on the kitchen counter I didn't recognize. Are you okay, Mom? I'm fine, Ethan. Tired. I found out later, through Tamara again, that Hudson had borrowed $800 from my mother and never returned it. That Kendrick had broken her good china during an argument with Hudson. That my father had defended them. Both times. My mother had built me a future I was never allowed to live in. And now she was watching strangers hollow it out from the inside, and calling it family obligation. I drove home that Tuesday and didn't sleep until 4 a.m. Because I was building something, yes. But it had a new purpose now. Not just survival. Documentation. By 25, Griffin Digital Solutions had 4 full-time employees. Let me say their names, because they matter to this story. Logan Merritt, my first hire, a self-taught developer from Decatur who coded like he was in a fight. Leah Fontaine, operations manager, meticulous, the kind of woman who color-codes spreadsheets for fun. Raj Pillai, Priya's younger brother, brilliant at systems architecture, and completely unbothered by pressure. Tamara Griffin, yes, my cousin. The only family member who told me the truth. I hired her as our client relations lead, and she was exactly as sharp as I believed she'd be. Michael Okafor had returned with a second investment round, $200,000 this time. We moved from the co-working space into a real office on Peachtree Street. 2 floors. Glass walls. A conference room with my name on a small brass plate. Ethan D. Griffin, founder and CEO. I remember standing in that empty office the night before we moved in, just me and the echo of my own footsteps on that hardwood floor. I thought about the FedEx warehouse, the Kroger parking lot, the boarding house room the size of a closet. I thought about Aunt Coraline's smile. My phone buzzed. It was my father. I let it go to voicemail. He'd been calling with increasing frequency since a local business journal ran a short feature on Griffin Digital, Atlanta's rising tech entrepreneur. Nothing major, maybe 200 readers. But it was enough. The calls started then. First casual. Then warmer. Then, slowly, more frequent. Tamara warned me over lunch one afternoon, "Uncle Jacob's been bragging about you at church, Ethan. Like you're still his project." I set down my fork. He bragged. Called you his son the CEO. Like you didn't leave on a rain-soaked night with a garbage bag. The audacity. The absolute, breathtaking audacity. Year 7. 2024. Griffin Digital had 22 employees. We'd just signed a $1.4 million contract with a healthcare network in Tennessee. I was 31 years old, and for the first time in my life I felt something close to stable. That's when my mother called, not on a Tuesday, not in secret. A real call. Her voice was different. Quieter. "Ethan, I want to have a family dinner. Just to reconnect. For me. Please." I said no 3 times over 3 weeks. Then she told me she'd been diagnosed with early-stage hypertension and her doctor wanted her to reduce stress. "Family tension is stressing me, Ethan. I need peace." That was her knife. And she knew exactly where to put it. I went. The dinner was at my parents' house. And the moment I walked in and saw Hudson and Kendrick seated at the table, fat, comfortable, unchanged, I knew I'd been maneuvered. Hudson grinned at me like we were old friends. "Cause. Look at you. Big-time businessman." I shook his hand like I was shaking hands with a stranger, because that's what he was. Aunt Coraline hugged me like she hadn't torched my life. "We are so proud of you, Ethan. This family made you who you are." I smiled. I sat down. I ate my mother's pot roast. I answered polite questions about the business. And then Kendrick, who had been quiet, watching me with calculating eyes all night, leaned across the table. "You know, Ethan, me and Hudson been thinking about getting into the tech field. We just need a foot in the door. Family helps family, right?" The table went still. My father looked at me expectantly. My mother stared at her plate. I put down my fork slowly. "I'll think about it," I said. I drove home that night and called Tamara. "They want jobs," I said. "I know," she said. "I've known for months." After that dinner, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I went through everything. Every memory. Every detail. Tamara helped me piece together the full picture of what Hudson and Kendrick had done over the 12 years they'd lived in my family home, rent-free, consequence-free. In year 1, Hudson convinced my father to invest $3,000 of family savings into a clothing brand that never launched. In year 3, Kendrick crashed my mother's car, the Honda she'd driven for 8 years, and my father told her to forgive it because accidents happen. In year 5, Hudson brought a woman into the house who stole $400 cash from my mother's dresser. My father paid it back out of pocket. Never asked Hudson to leave. In year 7, both cousins stopped working entirely for 11 months. My father paid their food and utilities without a single confrontation. And in year 10, this one stopped me cold. Tamara told me that Kendrick had called me the family's mistake at a cookout. Said my father made the right call putting me out because I was too independent and didn't know how to act like family. Too independent. That phrase sat in my chest like hot coals. I called Logan after I hung up with Tamara. He'd become more than an employee by then. He was my closest confidant. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Nothing yet," I said. "But I'm done pretending this is complicated." Because it wasn't complicated anymore. My family had made a calculated choice. They had chosen comfort, specifically, the comfort of two men who would never challenge my father's authority over their own son. They had traded me in. And now that I was worth something, they wanted a trade back. The answer was forming in my chest like concrete. 3 weeks after the dinner, I officially announced our new headquarters. Griffin Digital Solutions was moving to a 7-story building on Peachtree Center Avenue, purchased outright, not leased. The press release went out on a Monday morning. By noon, it had been picked up by Atlanta Business Chronicle, 2 local TV stations, and a national tech newsletter. By 4 p.m., my father had called 4 times. I let them all go to voicemail. By 5 p.m., Aunt Coraline had texted, "So proud, baby. We need to celebrate. When can we visit the new building?" I showed Tamara the text. She just shook her head slowly. Then, on Friday, moving day, I arrived at the new headquarters at 7 a.m. to oversee setup. What I saw stopped me cold at the entrance. Hudson and Kendrick were standing on the sidewalk outside our building. Both of them, holding handwritten cardboard signs. Hudson's sign read, "My cousin Ethan Griffin is my family. All I need is a chance. Please hire me." Kendrick's read, "Family is everything. Give a brother an opportunity. #Griffin Digital." They'd posted about it on social media the night before. There were already 40 comments, mostly sympathetic strangers who didn't know a single chapter of this story. A local blogger had shown up with a camera. My PR manager, Leah, was at my side immediately. "Ethan, how do you want to handle this?" I stood very still. 12 years. 12 years since that rainy night on Delmar Drive. 12 years of silence, of building, of watching them live comfortable in the ruin of what they'd helped take from me. And they were standing outside my building with signs. Using my name. For sympathy. "Set up the conference room," I said to Leah. "I'm going to talk to them." I had them escorted inside, professionally, courteously, because I was done letting them define the narrative. They sat across from me in the second-floor conference room. No Aunt Coraline. No my father. Just the 3 of us, and Tamara seated in the corner as my witness. Hudson was performing. Smile turned on, body language loose and familiar. "Ethan, look at this place, man. You really did it. We always believed in you. Stop." One word. He stopped. I opened the folder in front of me. Inside were printed screenshots, dates, notes. I'd documented everything Tamara and I had compiled. On October 14, 2012, I was removed from my family home so that the 2 of you could move in rent-free. I was 19. I had $47. Kendrick shifted in his seat. "I'm not here to relitigate the past, Ethan. You're outside my building with signs. You relitigated it on social media last night." Silence. "I want to be direct with you both. There are no open positions at Griffin Digital that match your experience. There is no nepotism track. Every person in this building earned their seat through a formal hiring process." Hudson's smile finally cracked. "So you're saying family means nothing to you?" I leaned forward. Family meant everything to me. That's why it hurt so badly when you both watched me get put out in October rain and said absolutely nothing. Kendrick looked at the table. "The signs come down today," I said. "You're welcome to apply through our website like anyone else. But you should know our standards are very high." I stood. "I wish you both well. Genuinely." I walked out. Tamara caught up to me in the hallway. Her eyes were bright. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, yeah." My father called that evening at 8:47 p.m. I answered. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me needed to hear what he would say. "Ethan." His voice was tight. Controlled. The voice he used when he was angry but knew he couldn't afford to be. What you did today was wrong. Those are your cousins. That is your blood. I sat in my office in the dark, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. Dad, I gave them a professional meeting and told them to apply through our hiring process. You humiliated them. They stood outside my building with signs. They made it public. Because you left them no choice. You've been ignoring this family. You changed the locks, Dad. My voice didn't rise. I'd made peace with that years ago, and now I was just reporting facts. October 14th, 2012. Rain. You didn't even come to the door. The line was quiet for a long time. I made a mistake, he finally said. The words came out hard and brittle, like he'd been holding them for years and they'd calcified. I know I made a mistake. But you can't hold a family hostage over one decision. I'm not holding anyone hostage. I've been building my life. That's all I've ever done. Your mother needs peace, Ethan. Then give her some. Silence. I love you, Dad. I want a relationship with you. But I won't be guilted into employing people who watched my displacement like it was entertainment. He hung up. I sat in the dark for another 30 minutes. Then Logan knocked on the door with 2 bottles of water and a quiet presence that said everything. You good, boss? Getting there, I said. 2 weeks after the conference room confrontation, my mother asked to meet me. Not on a Tuesday. Not in secret. She came to my office. I watched her walk through the glass doors. Lucille Griffin, 61 years old, in her church coat, looking at the brass nameplate and the 22 employees moving around the space with quiet, earned purpose. Her eyes filled the moment she turned and saw me. I held it together. Barely. We sat in my office with the door closed and I let her talk first. I owe you something I should have given you the night your father changed those locks, she said. I owe you an apology. I didn't interrupt. I have been a coward for decades, Ethan. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself you were strong enough. I told myself you'd be fine. Her voice broke. But a mother's job is not to bet on her child's resilience. It's to protect them. I felt 12 years of weight shift in my chest. I forgive you, Mom. I meant it. She reached across the desk and held my hand with both of hers. Hudson and Kendrick left the house last month, she said quietly. Your father he finally saw some things clearly. I absorbed that slowly. The signs. I asked. Embarrassed your father deeply. He couldn't claim you publicly and defend them privately anymore. The dissonance broke something open. She looked at me with tired, clear eyes. Your silence all these years was louder than anything you could have screamed. You know that. I nodded. We sat together for a long time after that. Just mother and son. 12 years of distance slowly, carefully folding into something that might, with time, look like healing. It's been 3 months since those signs went up outside my building. Hudson and Kendrick never applied through the website. I didn't expect them to. My father and I are talking, slowly, carefully, like 2 people learning a new language. It's not fixed. It may never be fully fixed. But it's honest now, and honesty is where real things grow. My mother comes to the office on Tuesdays. She sits in the lobby with sweet tea in a travel mug and reads while I work. We don't talk about Delmar Drive anymore. We're building something new on top of the rubble. Mason, my boy from 5th grade, who brought me blankets and smothered chicken, works as our DevOps lead now. Not because he's my friend. Because he applied, interviewed, and earned it. I want you to know that. Michael Okafor called last week. He wants to discuss a Series B. We're talking 8 figures. Logan has been with me 9 years. Leah, 8. Raj, 7. Tamara, 5. These are my people. Built from choice, not blood. I think about that 19-year-old standing in the rain with $47 sometimes. Not with grief anymore, but with a kind of reverence. Because that version of me didn't know he was at the beginning. He thought he was at the end. He wasn't. The rain didn't break me. It irrigated something. And here's what I know for certain now. You cannot build a future on the foundation of people who only value you once you've proven your worth. Real family celebrates the potential, not just the product. I didn't come from a perfect home. But I built a perfect table, and I chose very carefully who gets to sit at it.